Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our live webinar today. We're with Joe Alexander at Universal Health Services. We're actually broadcasting live from the data center today, and we'll talk a little bit today about how UHS is able to leverage teamwork as well as technology to help collaborate with Cerner to resolve end-user clinician issues and ultimately deliver better patient care. The way we'll build this presentation today is we'll talk a little bit about the challenges in achieving end-to-end visibility. We'll talk through Universal Health Services Cerner deployment to give some context and to frame the complexity that they're dealing with. We'll talk about how we overlay Goliath's proactive end-user experience architecture, and then Joe will go through some troubleshooting use cases, some actual scenarios that he's lived through utilizing this particular approach. So introducing Joe, he's the software architect and Citrix expert, one of them at UHS. He's been in the business for doing this on Citrix and Cerner for well over 20 years. UHS, on the right-hand side of the slide, is a Fortune 500 company. They deploy Cerner at over 27 acute care hospitals are using Cerner. They employ more than 87,000 people, and they've been a customer of Goliath since 2013. So let's start talking about end-to-end visibility, and let's talk about how to achieve it. So the first is to have a level set of what the actual perception in the marketplace is. The perception is that if you purchase Cerner, that there is literally a direct connect between the end users and Cerner RHO. And because of this perception, there's also a perception that if there's a problem with end user experience, that it is automatically Cerner's issue to solve. And nothing could be more further. The actual reality is much more complicated. So that connection goes through a data center. The large majority of organizations are also deploying multiple applications that are delivered to end users as well. So if there's a problem with Cerner and end user experience, it's not as simple as saying this is a Cerner issue. This is an issue that's owned by everybody that's trying to deliver great end user experience and improve patient care. Joe?
Yeah, and just to add on that and build on that information that Thomas just gave, within a Cerner deployment, we have a number of servers and other devices that work with the Cerner deployment that are in our data center, and typically Cerner leaves that up to the client to maintain those devices and make sure that they're running correctly. If there's a problem with them, they expect you as a client to deal with those. They'll certainly help you, but the ball is in your court to try and correct them. So it's nice to have some tools that will work with those and report back any problems and to troubleshoot them correctly.
This slide is really thanks, Joe. This slide is really a backdrop for how Goliath and UHS got together over 6 years ago to help solve these issues in this type of a complex environment. That's what we'll talk about today. At the end of the day, though, end-to-end visibility is really only achievable through good collaboration with vendors and customers. So the perception on the right-hand side of the screen, as we know, is not that simple. On the left-hand side of the screen, on the right-hand side of the screen, collaboration is only possible if both organizations understand clearly what their area of responsibility is. Cerner has a great visibility into their data center and application performance, infrastructure performance, etc. But it's the hospital's responsibility to own end user experience, so that they have the proper tools in place to be able to do so. So let's talk about the UHS Cerner RHO deployment. Joe, do you want to go through your infrastructure here?
So at UHS, as I say, we have 27 remote acute care hospitals distributed across the country. We have facilities in the East region, the Central region, the West region. correspondingly, we have a lot of Citrix servers that have been deployed for us by the Cerner RHO team. You see on the slide we have 93 Citrix servers in West, 129 in Central, and 115 in East. These may be slightly inaccurate due to the recent upgrade we did for the 2018 code and the Citrix 7.15 upgrade that we went through recently. We're still kind of ironing out some of the kinks and the integration with Monitor IT at the moment. It was a big lift for us, so it's basically our landscape at the moment.
And so how Goliath is overlaid in this infrastructure and how we achieve end-to-end visibility. If you look from left to right on this slide, and I'll walk through it slowly. So if you look at the top left-hand corner, our technology is deployed in Cerner RHO. Bottom of the slide, you see all the remote locations. Our technology is also deployed at those remote locations. All of this visibility, end-to-end now, is able to be seen by UHS's support team in their data center in King of Prussia. And so what you'll see as we go through these troubleshooting scenarios is how we pull together end-user experience metrics and put a proactive shell around health systems to make sure that Cerner is always, and Citrix delivery infrastructure is always up and available. Now, it may seem counterintuitive. In other words, how do you get end-to-end, how do you get end-user visibility by deploying into Cerner? But that's a Citrix architecture. So the real way to get end-user experience is by deploying in both of those locations. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you to start walking through the troubleshooting use cases.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. So we've had a number of use cases over the years, over the 6 years at Monitor IT on site, and we're probably going to highlight just maybe 4 of those that had significant impact on us, or we were able to leverage the technology to improve an adverse situation that we had within our clinical environment. So the first troubleshooting use case is around session slowness and connection issues. And those connection issues are either session warps or session hangs or failure to make a connection. Second use case will be hospitals being down for Cerner or having incomplete functionality, or the IF that Cerner usually categorize those events under. And third one will be clinicians unable to take patient notes due to the power chart with drag-in SharePoint icon causing crashes as the clinicians are dictating. And then the fourth troubleshooting case we'll use is patients unable to access data in the portal. That's been a big win-win for everybody involved in it. Nuance, Cerner, and in fact 4 wins if you include the patient. So let me just take you through a day in the life of someone like myself working in healthcare IT. A number of challenges are presented pretty much daily. We have daily complaints from clinicians and healthcare IT or healthcare workers about log-on and session performance, and there's a bit of a blame culture for the application performance, blaming either Citrix or Cerner for the issues, and it may not always be Citrix to blame. We'll see that in one of the slides later on. We also have issues providing consistent access to critical information in the Cerner EHR system, and that's very challenging due to the very distributed nature of UHS facilities and the broad variety of users that we have on the system. We also have ongoing issues managing expectations and maintaining and healthcare worker action on with the end-to-end metrics that we generate, and there's always a lack of visibility in the background there, and something historically we had to work out an extended period with Cerner to be able to get visibility into the system and leverage that for end users at the different facilities. So the solution that we settled on was the Goliath Performance Monitor, Monitor IT application. So we felt that investing in tools that moved us more from reacting to day-to-day business challenges or healthcare IT challenges to a more practical support through collaboration with ourselves, Goliath, and Cerner. A way to really identify easily problems and get to root cause as quickly as possible. So we're nowadays able to more quickly pinpoint the root cause and troubleshoot problems that come up in our Cerner environment. It relies on multiple systems and vendors on top of the Goliath system that we have. We are also able to leverage historical and screenshot evidence to be able to collaborate with Cerner and other vendors around problems that we see and share that information with our internal IT teams here at UHS. On this, we were talking about session slowness as it's reported at some of our facilities. So this case, half of our hospitals in the Las Vegas market, Nevada, were reporting that the system was extremely slow. Clinicians were being kicked out of the system. If they disconnected and tried to reconnect, they wouldn't be able to reconnect. That was 3 major hospitals in one market with literally thousands of users in that market, severely impacted. So whenever we have severe problems in our service like that, we go into a troubleshooting workflow process here. It's fairly typical for most clients. We open a service request with the IRC, and we reported to them that we have hospitals down, that we think it's some kind of connectivity issue. So we, as usual, let Cerner try to work that issue for the first half hour. If we don't get a solution within the 30 minutes, we start up a bridge line. My team, our networking team, and CernerWorks team, and we all start to use a variety of monitoring tools and applications to try and troubleshoot what's going on. On the Cerner side, they're looking at their Zabbix software on site, and they're looking at Remedy. They're looking at their alerting systems that are in IRC. Our UHS network team are looking at the ExtraHop application to really do more detailed traffic analysis and trace routing. And on my side, we're looking at the Goliath Monitor IT product, and we're able to identify that there are connectivity issues there. There's also ICA latency going on. All 3 of those, but we're also aware that the other facilities in that market and all of the other facilities in the West region where those 3 reside are actually performing okay. So between these 3 teams, the collaboration is going on there helps to pinpoint the root cause to a riverbed device, a network distribution center in the Las Vegas market. This is a site that's actually remote from those 3 facilities. And it turns out that that riverbed had some updated settings made to it by the riverbed vendor, and that caused some routing issues for the 3 hospitals that actually route through that building. So once that root cause had been identified, we are able to share that with Cerner and to an end ongoing investigation. Certainly they appreciate to be able to get off of their looking at their systems and get back to doing the other work that we so badly need them to do. And within the Goliath system, I keep on monitoring that to see that the change that was back to the riverbed technician actually resulted in reduced latency and improvement in the connectivity for the users. So once I see that everything returned back to our baseline normal screenshots and views that we see, we're able to let the SR be closed at the IRC. That was something that was resolved in around an hour. That typically would have dragged on for many, many hours in the days before we had Monitor IT. And having extra hop as well in that mix really helped as well in that case. And if we leave it up to Cerner only, it can drag on and on. That's definitely very helpful. So the kind of views that we will see in Monitor IT when we have a performance issue going on in the system. We can easily see that we have ICA latency going on, showing session slowness there on the first upper left area of the slide. We also see in the next slide that the next graph there's some ICA around time that's really spiking up around 18,000 milliseconds. And we also have network latency going on the top right, and end user connection speed is definitely way down at that time during that period of the problem that we saw.
And these are all available, Joe, just a note, in real time, right, and out of the box without configuration. So when an issue happens, you're able to literally get on the phone with CernerWorks and with other vendors, as we'll see in some of these other troubleshooting scenarios, and actually have a live conversation with them about actual things that are occurring and have data-based or data-driven dialogues.
And we also collaborate fairly tightly with Cerner as well, and link them links to these screens as well, so they can actually see themselves. They're not worrying that you're giving them bad information or anything. You've got a live view, and you say, yeah, left, you can see. So it's definitely cool, and we actually share those same screens with our facilities as well. It's a distributed system for us. So the second troubleshooting use case we have is where we have hospitals down, suffering some kind of incomplete functionality, as Cerner like to call it. And in this case, it's fairly similar to the initial troubleshooting case we just covered, where we open the service request to the IRC, telling them we've got hospitals down. In this case, we also open a support ticket with Goliath. There were some error messages that were presented to me at that time that I wasn't familiar with. We were still fairly new with Monitor IT at the time, so we engaged one of the senior guys there at Goliath, and he was able to pinpoint that we had errors going on that was causing some local caching instead of at Citrix farm. And over on the right-hand side there, on the other side of the line, these are the kind of error messages that we were seeing at the time, very plainly pointing out that we have SQL Server error code going on, showing IMA result DB Connect failures. So that's really indicating that we had an issue with the SQL Server that backends the Citrix farm that was causing incorrect caching to go on, and that really caused a lot of problems on the Citrix side. So we were able to share that data with CernerWorks straight away. I mean, I think within 2 minutes we had that, and within 30 minutes we actually had it resolved. That kind of really detailed information makes speedy recovery definitely possible, and in cases where we don't have that, it usually causes extended downtimes with Cerner. So you actually avoided a bridge call in that case. We didn't have to engage anybody else. A single source of troubleshooting and avoided a lengthy session with Cerner. And we were able to just close the ticket within 30 minutes, which is incredible. Third case we have is with Dragon Dictation. In our environment, we launch PowerChart and Dragon Dictation together from one icon from the storefront. And what we were seeing was when they started to, they would get very frequently get some crashing event happening, and they would have to start the dictation over. You know, anyone who's on the phone who deals with physicians, you know that's a bad scene to be in. The very demanding and very vocal population of users. So we dealt with the chart team at Cerner, and they were pointing the finger at Nuance. We talked to Nuance, and they were pointing the finger at Cerner. We had different versions of both of those software that were in parallel development, and the bit really lining up correctly. So once we started to see those crashing events in monitoring, we were able to show that it was speech on demand that was actually causing the crash and not PowerChart. It very obviously lets Cerner off the hook and puts the problem right in Nuance's court. At that point, those two were able to talk together and collaborate on getting a based on the different versions of the two softwares. The situation really drastically resolved. We just very occasionally get some crashes nowadays. We've seen a few more since we went to the, but it's nowhere near as bad as we used to see. So an excellent recovery there as well. So when we're looking at our alert view within the system, you see on the right-hand side, it's not specifically the speech on demand error, but this is exactly what we see in a crashing event. It's all the detail on the far right-hand side. There's a Cerner application crashing events, and then there will be SOD.exe showing up, and we're able to then prove that that user experienced that within their session. So really easy to identify that we had a specific application crashing, and we're able to say open a ticket with Nuance and that problem resolved fairly quickly and the ticket closed.
I think one of the important things here is that the initial hypothesis was that Cerner Millennium, right, PowerChart, but back to the original slides where when people think there's a direct connect, if there's a problem with Cerner, that's automatically a Cerner issue. And here, even though that was the initial hypothesis, we were able to prove definitively that the issue was a speech on demand executable and not a Cerner issue.
Okay, and the last case we can run through fairly quickly here is around the patient portal. Our initial experience with the patient portal application at UHS in our three environments was, I'd say, probably lousy is the best way I could describe it. We had endless complaints from our population who we had shared the portal login with. A lot of times they would connect to that and they would get a 404 not found error, or they get a 405 error, gateway not able to connect. And sometimes they would be able to log in and there would be no data presented. You wouldn't be able to see your patient name. You wouldn't be able to see your patient results or documents. And so we decided we'd need to develop a way to get monitoring of the patient portal built within Monitor IT, because we really weren't getting anything from the patient portal team at Cerner that allowed us to do monitoring or even gathering any metrics around how many times this was happening to our patient population. So we got into a design session with Goliath folks and decided to leverage the simulation application framework that they have and built a system that allowed us to, when the system gave us actionable alerts straight away, we had an issue, we could contact Cerner, IRC to try and get the problem resolved. It also allowed us to collect metrics for that situation as well, and provide that information back to the patient portal to Cerner and get it resolved. So what did that process actually look like? So we actually have like a virtual patient portal patient that we build on each of our production domains, and we launch the URL for the portal, confirm that we see a login button on that screen. We automatically click that login button, logs us into the portal, and we see the page load correctly and confirm that the sign up will be on that screen. Confirm the page content display after login. You should see username, any allergies that they have, and basically the overall checks that we're doing within that logon simulation process in the table on the bottom left. And on the right hand side within Monitor IT and the availability analysis screen, whenever there's a failure, like we just had a failure last Wednesday, I think it was, Wednesday or Thursday. This is an exact example that we screenshot from that event. We had a 504 gateway timeout error on that. So this is exactly what patients have been seeing when they try to connect. We were able to pull this up. It spent 91 seconds in access mode, basically, and we see all the details exactly what the logon simulator is doing, and can show that it's just having a failure navigating to the patient portal login. So for phase 2 of patient portal, we decided we needed to drill down even deeper to show that the patients, once they get logged in, don't necessarily get their health records displayed to them. So in this case, we click on the health records linked at the top left of that screen on the right, and then that's highlighted with the number 1. The number 2 area, we click the download and send. And if there's any issue there, we would get the 2 red error boxes at the top right-hand side. And these are real displays that we saw while we were, developing this process with Goliath. So this is a real screen, what the patients would have seen if they tried to look at the data. And then we take the next step of clicking the download button at step 4 there to see if there's any results that can be downloaded. That's the patient portal. That system has led to us having much higher uptime for that system. The Cerner, I think to this day, probably still don't have any way of giving a way to monitor that patient portal process. I'm not sure they have more internal tracking on those AR servers today, but we certainly have a way of being very proactive in getting Cerner quickly when we have an issue. So the last feature of Monitor IT that I'd like to, I'm a huge fan of, is the actual database behind the Monitor IT application. At our center, we have a Goliath server database, and there's a schema that the Goliath people have shared the schema documentation for us, and we've been able to leverage that both for ad hoc queries into the database, and we've also built some Tableau dashboards and the logon simulation durations, in the logon simulation breakdowns, and through this one dashboard that has 3 particular views that we can expand. If we click on expand it in below, we get a much easier to read screen that shows our logon times. And the same for the logon simulator, daily login frequency distribution by domain, facility, and application. So that's kind of our experience with Monitor IT. I hope it's for use on the phone, or he's going to be a Monitor IT user in the future.
So, Joe, we have a number of questions that have come in, so we'll take, we're almost out of time here, but we'll take a few questions. I also asked Yemi, who is one of our senior support folks, to join the conversation to answer some questions that might be out of the purview. So, for Joe, but Joe, I think this is a good one for you. Do you put the robot that logs on at each of the locations? We use a little bit different nomenclature than robot, but can you talk a little bit about how that setup works?
So that's a very simple process for us. We deploy logon simulation end for our services group. We've built an image for that machine. Currently today it's a Windows 10 image. We install the Monitor IT agent on that. We configure the port to 8282, and the installation from the documentation also puts that logon simulator executable out there. And then we verify that the Monitor IT agent is up and running on the system. And we ship it out to the facility. They plug it in, give it a static IP address. Mm-hmm. We go back to the screens on Monitor IT and values on it, and it's up and running. It's very painless. If we need to upgrade the agent, we push it right out from the Goliath performance server. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to keep this thing up and running.
Okay. And another question on that particular aspect of the technology, is there much network load with that logging on?
No, absolutely not. It's barely detectable. We just have the one PC in every facility. If we place that into a network closet, or we put it in a traffic area within our hospital, like where we have a lot of activity going on there, so we're actually placed in a unit that's challenged network-wise, mm-hmm. But it never causes any issue of load. It's very lightweight, as far as we've seen.
Okay. Yemi, this is probably one for you. So we talked about feeding this technology up to Power BI, but do you work with any other third-party tools?
So, you know, we've actually created some really nice templates for our customers in Power BI, as well as Tableau. We've even seen customers use Excel. You know, because of that back-end SQL database, we're really platform agnostic, and we can work with other third-party tools.
And Joe, here's another question for you. The question is, did you say you actually share this data with CernerWorks?
We do, yep. Yeah, and we actually give them a link to that page. So we have, you know, enabled this on our network for Center to be able to launch it as well if they want to see any of the data that we're reporting.
Can you trigger specific times in your environment for log-on times? If you have long log-on times, can you send alerts based on that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can get way too many alerts, in my opinion, sometimes from it. Yeah, we can get alerts on extended log-on times, high ICA latency. Many aspects of the system always have an alert. One of the things we were thinking of making this a use case is for our e-boards that we have deployed in our operating room and in our we have alerts that tell us that the board didn't come back from its weekly reboot. It's looking to see if there's PowerChart launched successfully from our auto logon script. It's also looking to see that Citrix started up as well. If any of those two cases don't happen, we get an email alert directly. And we do receive a lot of those email alerts.
Right. Okay.
Because that logon script really does have an issue once in a while.
Okay. And another question about double hop configurations. We have VMware Horizon on site. Yemi, this is question for you. Can you monitor and manage both of them?
Absolutely, and you know, that's another Cerner use case we see a lot, where you have VMware Horizon VDI accessing the Cerner Millennium application via Citrix, which ultimately gives you 2 sessions. Performance Monitor, we're able to monitor both sessions, giving you true end-to-end visibility with all of your user sessions accessing Cerner.
Have you ever been able to prove that a user's internet connection was the root cause of slowness, whether it's Wi-Fi devices?
I believe we did have some way to show that it was Wi-Fi devices. I just forget the scenario. It was around mobile carts that we have at the facility. I just forget the scenario on that. It was a number of years, probably 4 years ago.
Have you ever been able to troubleshoot an issue like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe not at UHS, but another.
Yeah, we see that a lot when we talk about using remotely from their office or from their home office or from their den or something like that, where they have sort of the same network bandwidth that they would have from inside of the hospital network. So with our session drill down, we're able to pinpoint exactly and show exactly how much bandwidth they have available for Citrix, proving or disproving that they have enough bandwidth to actually have a responsive Citrix session. And all of that information, like we went over in the webinar today, is all available right out of the box with the Performance Monitor.
And Joe, a question for you came in. How long do you keep your data? What are your data retention?
We keep it 3 months at the moment.
Okay.
If I really wanted to get it longer, it's just a matter of me asking for more storage.
Yeah.
Our tech services team can be a little bit tight-fisted with storage, but as long as I can justify that I want to keep it longer, I'll be able to get more. So Purge is set up automatically within the system, and we tell it 90 days, usually for what we need to do.
For the remote logons from the hospitals, do you have to put any software in Cerner RHO? Right, so you can set them up for any hospital without putting any technology in RHO to give you set up that early warning system.
Yeah, the only thing we have to do is create a user account in a user, and then leverage that account to do the log on to the. I think we look at 7 different applications as part of the logon simulation. So those are the key applications that 80+% of the users will use day to day. Including our revenue cycle application and our office. We've recently began working with at one of our facilities in the East.
Okay. And Joe, another question, probably the last one for today. Will you be at CHC this year?
I will. If you seek out the Monitor IT people, they know how to get hold of me. And I'm not doing this year, so I have some time to do other things this year. So I look forward to seeing anybody who needs more information.
All right. Listen, if we didn't get to your questions, and there are a number of them we didn't get to, we'll certainly send you responses. Thanks, everyone, for your time today. And Joe, thank you, and UHS for supporting this webinar.